Hey, everybody out there living non-religiously and those who want to live non-religiously. This podcast is brought to you by audibletrial.com. You can go to www.audibletrial.com/TNRL and sign up for a free 30-day trial membership. And with that free 30-day trial membership, you get a free audio download. It's free stuff from us and brought to you by audible.com. So free 30-day trial membership. The website is www.audibletrial.com/TNRL, and you get a free audiobook download. What could be better? Take it away, Ken.
Jesus got out here.
I thought I was a good Christian.
Jesus died on a cross. I go to church every Sunday. Jesus got out here. Then I read this. It says Jesus died on a cross for a rotten hooker.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday.
I thought I was a good Christian.
I go to church every Sunday. I am a very religious person.
I thought I was a good Christian.
The very lie the serpent told to Eve in the Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and promotes lies. The gospel of Jesus Christ. Spreads confusion and
Hey everybody, it is Monday, August 20th, 2012, This Non-Religious Life. I'm your host, Ken. Across the country we have Bob and Jason. Say hi, guys.
Hey, what's up?
And today we have a few things to talk about. First thing I want to delve into is some of the comments. Let's answer some comments that we've had on viewer feedback on some of the videos. Bob, why don't you take it away?
Just a couple of them on our. It's funny because some of the comments go back to the recent comments made on old episodes, and this one goes back all the way to episode 15 when we had Dr. Robert M. Price on the show, which that was pretty awesome. And the comment was made by RPagsis1, RPAGSIS1, and their comment was a little snarky. They said, until this learned man, and learned man was in scare quotes, until this learned man can reach the level of Dr. Craig and Professor Lennox, and his work is recognized by true intellects, it's all postmodern chatter garbage. And isn't that a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black? Isn't postmodernism like Craig's bread and butter?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually replied to this yesterday, and he's replied again. But I said, Dr. Price holds 2 PhDs, one in systematic theology, one in New Testament studies. He's incredibly erudite. He has over a dozen books on religion published. He is considered one of the more outspoken people in his field. People do listen to him. He was a member of the Jesus Seminar. Just because he holds some unorthodox views about the historicity of Jesus, that's no reason to call him, say that true intellects don't listen to him.
Yeah, but, isn't this whole thing calling him postmodern is really missing the mark? He rejects postmodern thought.
Yeah,
he wants to look at the nitty-gritty and know the truth of a matter, not debate about, well, how do I know what's true or not?
Yeah, well, postmodernism is it's the sort of standard to use when you want to try and discredit someone who doesn't believe in religion. They just call you postmodern. Most people, it's just like socialism in the media today. They say Obama's a socialist, but no one really has any idea what a socialist is. No one really who throws around the term postmodern understands what postmodernism is. And even if he was a postmodernist, that doesn't detract from the fact that he's got great points. And to make the point clear, and this is what I did in my comment back, I said, Dr. Price has debated Dr. Craig, and I think he destroyed him. He made Craig admit that all of his reasoning was completely subjective, that he didn't really have philosophical leg to stand on, destroyed him. Craig's arguments only convince people who are already convinced. So, whereas Dr. Price has convinced me of a number of things that I didn't accept before.
Well, I've listened to Craig debate, and a lot of what he says is he is the poster child for postmodern. He wants to examine, things on a philosophical level about how do we know what we know when it seems to me that Price wants to talk about the facts of the matter. This is what we know. We know this because here's the evidence for it. Oh, well, I just really think this person really, really missed the mark in their comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they commented back about how Dr. Price, he didn't think that Dr. Price won the debate with Craig, and I have to disagree. Like I said, I don't think Craig convinces anyone who's not already convinced that Craig's position is the right one. So.
Yeah. Anyway, well, maybe we'll follow back up on that. And then the other comment, which goes back to episode 11, gay marriage in New York and the Christian response. Their comment was, "You don't pray for God to do the work for you. You pray for guidance." And that comment was made by Charlemagne 2209. And I don't know what to say other than awesome. That's what I pray. Keep praying and see what happens. I don't know. I think we must have been talking about how a lot of Christians they seem to pray for action. They pray for rain and they pray for
to fix the country.
Yeah, they pray to
like Rick Perry in the response.
Yeah. Hey, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, I think this is a lot of theological doublespeak. This is they pray for action until it's pointed out that the actions never come about, and that actual taking action is better than asking for God to take action. In which case, then they backtrack and say, "Oh no, we're not asking God to do it. We're asking God to guide us to do it," which is pointless. Why don't you just do it in the first place?
Well, I understand the importance of in the sense of asking for strength, because I think if I'm like anybody else, when I'm in situations that are uncomfortable for me, I will talk to myself and say, "Okay, Jason, you gotta fucking do this. Muster up the courage to do it." Or like if I have to get up in front of some group of people and speak, I psych myself out. I pump myself up mentally, and I guess that would be if you wanted to stretch it and pull a parallel to what the commenter was saying is, sure, I guess you could say I'm praying, but I'm not praying to a deity or a God. I'm just telling myself that I can do this. I'm looking for that. I'm telling myself to pull your inner strength up. This is not that bad. And
well, I think it's what Ken said. It is certainly doublespeak, because they say no, we're not praying for action. We're praying for guidance. But I promise you, as soon as there is some random yet fortuitous event, everybody says our prayers have been answered.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I feel like that's what it is too. And I mean, there's nothing wrong if they admitted from the get-go that they were praying for guidance. That's fine. I think that's fine. I think it's, like you said, it's almost human nature, except for they don't realize that they're talking to themselves. They feel like they're talking to God. I mean, everyone does that. That's normal.
Well, yeah, sure. It's self-reflection.
Yeah, that's usually not the premise from the get-go. The premise from the get-go is usually, let's pray to God and He can solve our problems for us. And it's only when they're caught in that sort of gotcha moment, like, that they backtrack and say, "Oh no, we're asking for guidance, not for Him to do anything." Well, but again, as soon as something happens that's fortuitous, whether it be a random chance or someone else does something, they're going to say, "God answered our prayers and provided this for us."
Well, isn't that how you become a professional psychic? You make 100 predictions, and then when you get one right,
I really would like somebody
Absolutely.
to take that random yet fortuitous occurrence and say, "Wow, this is random and fortuitous. Let's pray to God for guidance of how to how to move forward." Instead, everybody says, "No, our prayers have been answered. This is God answered our prayers."
By doing the
Yeah.
floods, the towers, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
People
it's
pray
not
for
gonna happen,
miracles,
but-
not for guidance, usually. And so, do we have
that's
any more comments?
No, that was it. I just now the more I think about that's a heads I win, tails I win philosophy. When it doesn't when the random fortuitous event doesn't happen, you say, "Well, we were just praying for guidance." And when the random fortuitous event does happen, our prayers are answered.
It is actually a flow chart that works like that. It's pray. Was your prayer answered? Yes. God answered my prayers. No. God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's heads I win, tails I win, and it's a lot of confirmation bias and special pleading nonsense like that.
All right. Well, congratulations, Charlemagne 2209, for providing us a great example of the typical spin doctoring.
Mm-hmm. It's good, and we love comments. So leave comments, please. We will address them. Always try
Bob
to.
won't.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so that's all I got for comments.
Okay. So you want to dive into our main thing
Yes,
now?
I do.
Oh God. So anyone who's been following the news should know about this. The Republican representative from Missouri, who's currently running for Senate, Todd Akin, recently said that this was concerning abortion, that in the instance of rape, if it is a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try and shut the whole thing down, i.e. that rape victims can't get pregnant from the rape, which is horrendously ignorant.
And with that statement, he gets elected.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's in the House now. He's running for Senate.
Yeah,
And-
he's
and I guess
running
there's a-
against the Democratic incumbent.
Yeah, the Democratic incumbent's got the seat now. That guy
Is a
is a perfect
douchebag.
example of why unless you are a white male millionaire, why would you ever vote for a Republican candidate?
Yeah, this is it's funny because even the Romney Ryan ticket is like sort of shying away from him.
So that's another thing. So this guy's his statement about legitimate rape is indicative of the Republican, I don't want to say war on women, but it's the Republican stance with regarding women, their disregard for women, and he just is giving voice to it. And now Ryan and Romney are backing away from it, and yet their policy speaks to exactly what he says.
Well, it's actually caused them both to say that they would not block abortion in the case of rape.
Well, they say that.
Yeah, they say that now.
But in the past, they've legislated exactly the way this guy has been speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's double talk. But I want to say something. This shows the sort of religious right-wing mentality that keeps people stuck in the past. This idea that rape victims can't get pregnant is a very, very, very old idea.
Yeah, did you see the article that this one reporter had in The Guardian, I think? Where
Yeah, that's what I have pulled up right now.
It went back to the 13th century.
13th century in the British legal text Fleta. And it says that if, however, the woman should have conceived at the time alleged in the appeal, it abates, for without a woman's consent she could not conceive. which is, it just dates back to their understanding of the human reproductive system.
Oh my
That
God.
was
I have
8 centuries ago.
this view in my head of this woman in a courtroom with her rapist and the defense attorney, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client is not guilty of rape because this woman is obviously pregnant. So obviously she was not raped.
Well,
I rest my case.
The flip side of it is all the women who, because of this statement, all the women who became pregnant because of rape really were not raped because it wasn't legitimate.
I
mean, that's the
know.
statement.
What a slap in the face.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty awful.
And why is
it
this
blows
guy
my mind
in
that
a
this kind of
position of
bad
power?
science misunderstanding of reproduction persists 800 years later.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't know how he got in a position of power. What does that say about our country when we look at a person with such distorted view of the world and go, oh yeah, he can represent me?
Well, maybe that might be a subject for another show. Because I know I think this is a relevant topic, but it does sort of blur the lines between religion and politics. And I don't mind blurring them because they sort of smear over one another anyway. But this sort of, in the spectrum, it's leaning a little bit more politically.
Yeah.
But it would also be interesting to think about, and maybe think about for a future show, about why people, for whatever motivations, and they could be religious, why people vote against their own interests. That guy got elected, and I'm sure people who voted for him were women.
There had to be. There's no
and
way.
they may have even been women who were rape victims.
Yeah, either women didn't vote in that election, or women voted for him.
There's got to be this whole psychology that's wrapped up in human nature and motivation and religious upbringing about why people vote against their own interests.
I think about that on a nearly daily basis, especially now that we're in an election cycle. Because I always say, not all super right-wing conservatives are dumb.
Yes, they are.
Just the working class ones, because people tend to vote against their own interests. We take concepts that are like, if you're not a far right, super right-wing evangelical millionaire, you really shouldn't be voting for the far right wing. You shouldn't be. No. Conservatives in general, because they do not represent your interests.
No, and I really don't think we're too far off the base making those generalizations. I usually don't want to do that, but I think in this instance, it's absolutely true.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's spot on with pointing that out, because just look at who they advocate for. They advocate for the millionaires. They don't advocate for the middle class or the poor. They advocate for the super evangelical Christians. They don't even really advocate for moderate Christians, let alone Jews or Muslims or, God forbid, atheists. They're not on the side of women. They're on the side of men. They're on the side of people who are homosexual or bisexual or pansexual or asexual, heterosexual only.
Well, let's bring it to what the show. Where is it spiritually or biblically that guides people to oppress women, to find that, like the core Republican values that we were talking about previously on the show? How is that backed religiously? I mean, how does it fit in there?
There's two passages that really reflect misogyny in the New Testament, and they're both in the epistles. One is in 1 Corinthians, and the other is in 2 Timothy, I think. Without looking it up, I can't find it. but they essentially set women underneath underneath men. Now, the First Corinthian passage is a very late redaction. It was added much later, and Second Timothy is pseudepigraphical writing. It wasn't written by Paul. It was written much later, probably mid to late 2nd century at least, because a lot of people who really like Paul didn't know about it. But these two things set men above women. Women aren't allowed to speak in the church. They're not allowed to teach. There are a few other references that say, just as, a man is over a woman as the head of the house, so Christ is over man as the head of the church and stuff like that.
Second, we don't have
it's definitely borrowed from sort of like the old Aristotle idea of the great chain of being, which puts man at the top, and then women, and then children. Really, actually, women are below other things too. They're not even right underneath men. They're usually it's like men, and then Greek boys, dolphins, horses, women, slaves.
So how come we don't have people out on the street, saying, using the Christian against gays scenario where they're saying Deuteronomy, it's an abomination? How come there are not people holding up the signs saying, oppress women? They don't have the right to vote. They don't have,
Well, they did. They did. They did that 75 years ago.
But it's still continuing.
It continues a little today. It does. You see it in some of the churches that still don't ordain women, or other things like that. But most Christian denominations recognize the fact that they lost that battle, and now they're, rather than being at the point of fighting it, they're at the point of, it was our idea all along. Same with slavery. Slavery is in the Bible. It's condoned in a number of places. Slaves, obey your masters. Leviticus 25:44. Your bondsmen and bondsmaiden may come from the nations around you. Slavery is rife in the Bible, but Christians know that slavery, at least Christians in this country, tend to understand that slavery is wrong, and so don't push that issue. They sort of delegate it. Oh yeah, that was back then. This is now.
But do you think they still propagate it? I mean, silently. I mean, like
that's why I say tend rather than to. I don't want to say do, because groups like the KKK are absolutely a Christian organization. Then there's, they're just racists.
Well, I'm not saying the extremists, people who still propagate that ideology or that formula or whatever. I'm saying like normal Christians. It's like to go back to the other show, Coalesce. It's like Matt said on the show that he knows that it's wrong for Christians to be to protest gays and try to push laws about it, but if he's cut deep enough, he's still against it. With applying that to this, are there Christians out there that go, yeah, I know it's wrong, but if you push them on their spiritual belief, would they say, yeah, no, women should be lesser?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those points where, especially when you get into the infallibilist, sort of mentality that the Bible is absolutely inerrant in every way. They play sort of fast and loose with the text at most times, but if you really push them on it, they'll back into the position where, yeah, women are lesser than men because God said so.
Oh, how many religious families out there do women vote what their husbands tell them to?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think that'd be an interesting case study to see, like get women from families and run them through the course of asking them about their own interests, and then compare it to how they vote. Compare that to how their husbands vote.
The thing is, like, and I'd love to know that, and I'd love to be able to answer those questions. But there's sometimes when you get into a debate with somebody and they ask, like, well, how did you vote? How did you vote? I'm tempted to say, none of your goddamn business, because it's my vote, and I don't have to tell you what it is, and neither do those women. We just have to sort of look at it based on, like, a population survey or some kind of, we have to infer that information. Because if they don't want to tell you how they voted, they don't have to.
Yeah, well, if they don't want to tell you how they voted, then you just try to find someone else who will.
Yeah, but
that's the nature of sociological research.
Yeah, I know, but I'm also sort of a supporter of that. It is a secret ballot, and that you don't have to tell somebody how you voted.
No. That's the thing. You don't have to tell anyone how you voted. It would be voluntary. I have no qualms telling people that I voted for Nader in 2000.
I did it. I admit it.
I think we talked about this before, but why are people so protective of their vote? I mean, don't you think having that conversation, this is why I voted this way? I mean, it's
well, if you want to, but the reason it's a secret ballot is because.
Well, I understand the secret ballot part, but why individuals outside of the ballot box? When you go, who'd you vote for? They're like, it was taught to me that there's two things. Either there's certain things you don't talk about, and you don't share who you vote for.
I think
it's to protect against political discrimination, so that if you do vote for a party who is unpopular, or worst case scenario, if you vote for someone who doesn't get into office, they can't oppress you for it.
I think that's a lame excuse.
Well, no, but the reason it's a secret ballot is because there was a time if you didn't vote correctly,
but we're not
there were severe repercussions, and now I know it's different now, and not wanting to talk about it, I think that's just a way to not stir up debate.
I think it's a way to keep shit going the way it is, because if you're not talking about it with your neighbor of who you voted for and why, and having that discussion, then shit just stays. It's like, well, that's there's an us and them kind of mentality that it breeds.
Well, I kind of agree with you though, because it's one of those things like that idea of in polite society, what you don't talk about is politics and religion, right? Because it breeds debate and controversy and maybe even ill will. But see, and I think that's that activist side of you where it's like, no, fuck polite society. I want to shove people's faces in it.
No, I don't want to shove people's faces in it, but I do. If we can look at situations where our politicians who are in office are saying that women can't get pregnant unless they're legitimately raped, and we are not talking about that. If we go, who'd you vote for? Oh, I'm not going to tell you. Did you vote for that asshole? I'm not going to tell you. I was like, even if you did, we should talk, because that's how those people
I think
get.
You're right. I think you're absolutely
right. It's not putting your face in it. It's
I agree with you, Jason. I don't think the reason why it is that way is intentional, but I think government officials take full advantage of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
I do think it's a remaining zeitgeist from when people could be persecuted for voting in the wrong direction, and then it just persists. And the government, especially right-wing evangelicals, aren't going to tell you to change that thought, because that's what keeps them in power. If people suddenly woke up today and realized that, hey, these assholes don't represent us, shit would change. It's like Emma Goldman used to say, if voting changed anything, they would have made it illegal by now.
Amen.
Yeah.
And, well, I think I think it's apt. They keep that persisting the way it is because it solidifies their own power. They take full advantage of it.
Yeah, you're right. So if I ever told anybody that how I voted was none of their business, it was because I didn't feel like a fight. I just didn't feel up to a fight. But I don't know.
I mean, we can look at.
Maybe you never felt that way.
I mean, we can also look at just other social elements. It's like us growing up. We're old enough where we grew up not having MP3s. It was CDs, tapes and records. Growing up in high school and stuff, it was like, you didn't really, if you had like a guilty pleasure music, like if you like Def Leppard or, there was something that your friends didn't like.
I don't want to hear you say anything bad about Def Leppard.
I'm sorry.
I think
you kind of kept that to yourself, and people didn't know your guilty pleasures in music unless they were like really close to your friends and they came over and y'all were playing Tiffany or something. And now with that music has opened up and sharing music and everybody has access to everybody's MP3 files and stuff, kids are growing up saying there's not really that division. I mean, you're seeing more mashup of music now than you ever had of different genres. And I think that applying that to the political scene, I'm not talking about, your political affiliations and who you voted for, is an example is like, well, sure, life can exist if you don't tell people your guilty pleasures, but look how much better it becomes. Look how much more mixed it becomes when you open up your collection. And the same way when you open up who you vote for and why, I think it just overall will make our country a better place.
Well, I do agree with you that we should be talking about it. That idea if you don't talk about religion and politics in polite society is total crap.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely right for all the reasons you said.
it's crap because the two things that I love talking about the most.
You know what sucks? Bob said I was right, and I don't have a camera on me today.
Yeah, I know, right?
Damn it.
You see the look on Jason's face.
I'm tearing up, man.
So what do you think? Do you think this guy's going to win his election?
Yes.
You think so? You honestly think so?
Well, it's one of those things. Like I'm not a I'm not a political analyst or anything. But right now, how can this guy expect to win an election against the Democratic incumbent when the only people voting for him should be white, male, heterosexual millionaires? That's his entire voting base. Which in his district, I don't know, what is that, like 6 guys? I don't know how many people could that be? How could anybody win an election when that's their base?
Easy.
And it's one of those things too. When you think about who would vote for that guy, who's the guy that says, "Well, I'm not a millionaire, but I'm going to vote for him anyway because maybe he agrees with, this idea of legitimate rape can't get women pregnant." Like who prioritizes in that manner where they sacrifice their, maybe like sort of their fiscal values for, they're just so opposed to abortion even in the case of rape?
Well, I think it's the issue is even more shallow than that. From my experience of going back to my growing up in Texas, the Republicans that I knew were people who voted Republican. I mean, there was not all of them, but a majority of the ones that were my age and that voted Republican because there's this attitude, there's this image that you should aspire to. Is like Republican represents wealth, and that was not viewed as a bad thing. That was viewed as, look, this is something that I want to become. I want to become wealthy. I want to become well off. And I want to be in this class. So the closest way that I can get to that at this moment in my life is by voting, for this club, for voting for these people in this club, so I can associate myself that way, even though that I'm not financially in their bracket. But look, these are my people. There's my club.
It's the Alex P. Keaton effect.
Yeah. and I think that still holds true for a lot of individuals who are not rich, who are not CEOs and not whatever of a company. They're average people like us. I think that's why they vote for Republican, because they see something that they want to become. They don't see the corruption and stuff. They see face value. Look, they're rich, they're successful. They're sending their kids to the best schools. They're having the best health care. They can afford stuff. They don't have to worry about it. And I think that's what's.
Well, I mean, I definitely see that, but I think that's sort of a foolish.
I wasn't saying it was right.
Voting Republican doesn't make you wealthy.
No.
No, but I kind of agree with Jason. Something worth looking up is called the two Santa theory. For a long time, Democrats in the latter half of the 20th century, Democrats had a pretty good majority. They had a good run in both houses of Congress, and I mean, some good presidents there. They were really loved, at the time. You had, until Nixon, you had a steady increase in the minimum wage and real wages. You had a booming middle class, and the Republicans knew that there was no way they could counteract this. There's no way, fiscal conservatism could compete with, sort of tax and spend where the spending is all on social programs. The Democrats gave people, Medicare. The Democrats gave people Social Security. The Democrats gave people, collective bargaining with worker unions. There's no way. So they devised this idea of the two Santas, where they portrayed the Republican Party as being fiscal conservative, but also, if you want to succeed and you want to be like us, I mean, look at us, we're wealthy. This is what you got to do. Put us in charge. And then you have horrible, horrible things like trickle-down economics, moving away from the gold standard, just crazy, crazy policies that just have destroyed, the middle class in America, destroyed jobs, real wages have stagnated. When adjusted for inflation, the minimum wage in this country should be about $10.50 an hour. It's not.
Yeah, and you bragging about it.
What's that?
Your Facebook post where you're bragging.
Yeah.
He wasn't bragging. I was joking.
But the idea persists because no one wants to admit that they've been lied to and they've been duped. And so it persists.
That's cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. So
I did the right thing.
I think we need to teach people more. It's okay to strive to be wrong. Don't be afraid to make the wrong choice, but accept it and embrace it and move on.
Yeah, learn from your mistakes. What we really need is we need to cultivate bullshit detection. Like that should be the number one priority for schools, is to arm kids with working bullshit detectors, like where they can see a claim and they can examine it and critically think about it and say, yeah, this is valid, or no, this is absolute bullshit.
I would love to see that in a class where they're sitting in a classroom, the teacher's talking and says something and a student goes, bullshit, I call bullshit, and they discuss it. There was a
thing where it was in the run up to the Republican primaries when Santorum was still campaigning, and he was giving an address to, I don't forget where he was at, and he was like, right now President Obama wants to send everybody to college. Can you believe that? He wants to send everybody to college. There are people who are working their jobs every day. They didn't go to college, and yet they're still good, honest, hard-working Americans, and Obama wants to send everybody to college.
What a dick.
I was like, what the
what a
fuck?
Dickhead. And
how, like...
What is the problem with that? I don't understand. Like, what is the bad idea?
Because you're going to get to college, and your liberal professors are gonna fill your head full of liberal ideas.
AKA reality.
Yeah, right. Again,
reality has a well-known liberal bias.
Oh, that was in stereo. Do that again.
Yeah. It's funny when I was in college, I had this professor, Callum Cunningham, and he was the person I actually get the term bullshit detector from, because he told me, humanities education will teach you to recognize bullshit in all of its guises, because that's, I mean, his whole class was rhetoric and logic and argumentation and critical thinking. That's what his course was. You understand logical fallacies and how to argue and how to make sure your arguments are sound and how to recognize when other people's arguments aren't sound. It was a phenomenal course.
Yeah, sounds great.
Email him and ask him if he wants to do a show.
Well, did you see the did we mention it last week about the Texas, was it Texas legislation?
I'm sure.
Where they literally say that they're going to get rid of critical thinking in classrooms because we don't want kids thinking. It had to be Texas. Oh fuck, where was it? It was somewhere where they actually say in the legislation to get rid of critical thinking.
He's either Louisiana or Texas because those are the two hot spots for them. But
and really, what it is it was an attack on evolution, is what it was, and it was religiously motivated. Of course, you don't want people thinking critically. I can't. They literally, it was spelled out, written out in the legislation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that. I think it was Louisiana.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to pick on Texas.
No, please do. I'm sure they have it. We just haven't read about it yet.
Texas has its fair share of, guilt to be laid on. It gets to decide the textbook curriculum for the entire country, basically, based on what it thinks should be taught in Texas. Which blows my mind, because you think it would be California or somewhere with a higher population, but it's apparently Texas.
Texas is where all the books get printed. That's why they were doing that push, because they found that by going to districts throughout the nation and trying to fight, they lost. So they said if they just go to the source of where the textbooks that go to the most schools and have it changed there, that they would have a better chance. And that's what they did. The same thing that they did in South Korea, with trying to get evolution removed. Is they're like, okay, we're falling short at the polls. We're falling short in public debate, so we're just going to go cut the legs out of it. And that's their new strategy.
With the textbooks, it's as goes Texas, so goes the rest of the nation, for whatever reason.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'd be very curious to see if Akin wins his election. Like, he should be just erased off the ticket altogether, because on my scorecard he couldn't stand a chance to win, but yet he might.
Yeah.
How will he do that?
I mean, I would say stranger things have happened, but stranger things are happening.
Well, I mean, and at the same time, I can definitely see someone who would be religiously motivated to be, because all right, and let's be clear, he made that statement in the context of abortion in the case of rape.
Yep.
And people are very, very religiously opposed to abortion in all of its strange combinations and permutations, all the weird shit we can think of, probably has or will have. And so people who are religiously motivated to oppose abortion are going to see it as a black and white issue, and they're just going to vote for him anyway. Did you see the news article about the woman who died in the Philippines, I think? She was in I want to say she was in the Philippines, but I could be wrong. But it's someplace that has a very staunch anti-abortion policy, and she had leukemia, and the doctors denied her treatment because she was pregnant, because the leukemia treatment would likely terminate the pregnancy. So
wait. Where's this source of this information?
It was AP. It was an Associated Press. I'll look it up.
Well, no. I'm just saying this sounds like this may have been a press release put out by the religious right. Because this just sounds like their stories that they always say this is why. It's just, I don't know.
No, she wanted to. It was their anti-abortion law that prevented her from getting the leukemia treatment, and so she didn't have the treatment for her leukemia because it would have aborted the fetus, and then she died.
So I guess I just hit the wrong side of the fence. It just seems like that's a propaganda piece.
I don't know.
I mean, because why do we care about an individual in Philippines who died because she couldn't have an abortion? Is she related to somebody famous? Is there?
No.
I mean, why is it making headlines?
Because it's that strange situation of their anti-abortion law prevented her from treatment, and the law says that you can't even. I think their law was so strict that it was like you can't even have an abortion if it would save the mother's life.
Yeah, which is fucked up.
And so here it was. It was like almost that scenario exactly played out, and she died. I think like I think it turned out, I forget what the timeline was, but like bad things happen, and she eventually got treatment, but it was way too late, and now she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Did the baby survive?
No.
It's an all or nothing game. It's an all or nothing game, and that's how they view it.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go.
I was just going to say, it's horrible that this happened to this individual, but I find it suspect that it's the reason that it's in our media. Why AP is reporting on it. I think it's pushed. It's an agenda thing to push an issue. Because seriously, why? Outside of it being a woman dying because she was refused abortion, why is that in the media?
Because it's a polarizing issue. If it was anything else, if it was she was denied a heart transplant, it wouldn't be in the news.
That's what I'm saying. It's an agenda.
It's because it's sensational news. That's why, and it's not necessarily propaganda, but it's polarizing, which is what news outlets look for. You want to engage the audience, and if it's about something that's boring or stupid or whatever, if it's not engaging, and it doesn't get people riled up to want to talk about it, it's not worth reporting.
Yeah.
At least in the eyes of the mainstream media. You can't report on everything, so they pick out the things that are going to get the highest viewer response.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is, I mean, there's no denying that abortion is super, super heavily charged in our society. But it's funny because, whenever I get talking about abortion, I always end up bringing up the fact that Numbers 5:11-31 is a biblical prescription for, an Iron Age abortion. It's what it is. It's if a woman is thought to be unfaithful by her husband, she's brought into the temple, and they take the dust from around the tabernacle and they mix it together into a potion, and she drinks it. And if she was unfaithful, then a miscarriage happens. If not, then it's the husband's child.
And she was pregnant, so not a legitimate rape.
Yeah.
Not a rape. That's right. I'm going to have to go back through and see if there's anything in the Bible that talks about human sexuality or like reproduction in that way. I wonder if there is. I don't think I've ever found anything. Something to reflect on. 'Cause I bet you it's not in there.
I'm trying to look for that article, and I'll find it and link it somewhere. Yeah. We'll dig
drop
it
in
up
the show notes or something.
And we can maybe, I don't know, we can come back to it or something. But we could do a whole show about abortion, but I could see in this
or we
context
could just do an abortion on the show.
How it would, yeah, right here on the floor. I could see how that would be such a powerful issue for somebody that maybe that would get them to vote against their own interests. Like, I don't care about their financial policy. I don't care about their, their Medicare policy. This is the one thing that's important to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure people vote that way all the time.
Well, I know there's a lot of people who probably read that article and it helped solidify if they were already anti-abortion, solidified their belief. Say, look, this woman died because of this stupid law.
Well, yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
I was that guy.
You're like, fuck yeah.
It's funny. All right, it's getting to be right around that time, huh?
It sure is.
About 50-something minutes. So, any closing remarks? I think we've exhausted this as far as we can go in 1 hour. No?
Yeah, don't vote for Akin.
Yeah. Please, anyone in Missouri. I'm sure if you're watching the show, you probably aren't going to vote for him anyway, but who knows, right? Who knows?
We've been saying from the beginning that, like, the Republican Party must not want to win.
Yeah.
And yet
No,
they
seriously,
do.
it's like it's a game of who can bleed out more from shooting themselves in the foot.
I know with all right. So I mean I get it that a lot of times in most elections, presidential elections especially, you vote for the guy you hate the least. But I would like to think that there's maybe a little more options as far as like senator seats and House seats and who's competing for those. But who knows? Still, vote for the guy you hate the least.
Or revolution.
Yeah, or revolution. It's funny. It's saying shoot themselves in the foot. I bet you a lot of these guys, it's funny because they shoot themselves in the foot and then they call it stigmata.
Yeah.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's just my religion coming through. See, I know Christ, and He caused me to say that, and people go, oh, all right. Okay. So after that horribly offensive remark, if you have any comments, questions, concerns about the show, if you want to call us and leave a voicemail, leave an angry voicemail and yell, and Jason will listen to it. 757-337-2195. Email zombie popcorn at non-religious at zombie-popcorn.com. Facebook.com/thisnonreligiouslife. Google Plus, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, listen to it in your car, on the go, whatever. Just check out the website, zombiepopcorn.com. Sign up for the newsletter, find out about this show, all the other shows, Coalesce, Talking Dead, everything. It's great. There's always giveaways and cool stuff. And with that, I will leave you with a picture of Goathead Mary.
I was gonna say let's end it on a truly offensive note and show off your tattoo.
Until next week.
Have a good night.
Good night.
We forgot to talk about.
I wrote, and I had disease, they ran it,